guest today, because our guest today is one of the world's most influential voices in sustainable development, economic policy, and global cooperation. He has been a guiding voice for decades on how nations can grow responsibly, tackling poverty, inequality, and climate change through evidence-based policy and global solidarity. From advising the United Nations on the Millennium Development Goals to championing the Sustainable Development Goals, his work has shaped global thinking on how humanity can progress inclusively and sustainably. Today, he will be speaking on a topic of a pressing global importance, which is addressing the urgent need for concessional finance and renewed multilateralism to achieve the SDGs, how global cooperation, fair financial systems, and reformed development institutions can bridge the sustainability funding gap, foster regional collaboration, and create a more equitable global framework for progress. So please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Professor Jeffery Sachs, the President of the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network.
Is it possible to use, hold on. Good. That way I don't have to stand in front of the podium, but I can stand here with you to express my incredible gratitude to the American University of Cairo and to Galala University for launching the Sustainable Development Solutions Network for Egypt. This is a very wonderful day for me because I know that Egypt's role and its voice in solving the global challenges of sustainable development will be immense, because we know this university very, very well and admire it tremendously. And also, I'm looking forward to getting to know Galala University in person. I think that as a rising new university in a rising new part of this country's development, it's a great opportunity, and I'm absolutely grateful for Galala University joining together with AUC to host this network. We're in confused and difficult times, to be sure, and I think that the way out of this confusion actually is going to be led by thinkers at universities, at great universities like AUC and Galala University. I've learned in policy advising during the last 4 decades, even well-minded and well-directed politicians don't have time to think. And I've also learned that there aren't so many well-directed and well-minded politicians anyway. So even if they did have time to think, I'm not sure they would think, or they would want to think in the ways that they need to think. But it does mean that we have to do a lot of the thinking. And I think universities are unique in the capacity to think clearly and for the common good. Universities, to my mind, embody something precious and spectacular in our societies. They do 3 things that are very, very special. First, they bring together all areas of knowledge. They are, as the Greeks say in a word that I love in Greek, pan epistemio, all knowledge. So they bring together the physical sciences, engineering, the social sciences, the behavioral sciences, and we need all of that if we are going to be able to solve complicated problems like the climate crisis or the environmental crisis or the social crises or the geopolitical crises that we face. we're going to need knowledge across many, many areas. And that simply, institutionally, can't be found other than in universities. The second point about universities that I find quite wonderful, and why I've made my own life inside universities, is that they are organized for the common good. Universities are not organized for political parties. They're not organized for incumbent politicians. They're organized for society and for the long term. And they are among our longest-lived institutions in humanity. And that's for the reason that they are not partisan. They're not directed for short-term purposes. They are looking for the common good and over generations. And that is the third point that I love about universities, which is the generational, intergenerational nature of universities. It is an incredible phenomenon, but the students get younger every year by 1 year. As I have aged, it just seems absolutely remarkable. But we have this incredible intrinsic nature of universities, of renovation, and the students get better and better, in my opinion, and they know more and more than their faculty, at least speaking for myself, and so they can teach us, they can teach the faculty, but it is the intergenerational exchange. Students with the long horizon, with the need to look forward, because that's their lifetime, with the wisdom that faculty can help to impart and share across generations, but knowing that we are imparting knowledge for those who will be the leaders in the future, I find at the core of why universities are so thrilling. So I don't know of another institution in society that has the responsibility and role that we have as universities, and that is the essence of why 13 years ago with then Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, we set up the Sustainable Development Solutions Network. The idea is to mobilize universities around the world to address the complex challenge of sustainable development. So if you'll permit me, let me just describe that challenge and where we stand right now and what I hope we do going forward. The idea of SDSN came in 2012 in an interesting context, which is in a way reliving itself now. 2012 was the 20th anniversary of an important UN conference, the Earth Summit. In 1992, there was a gathering of the world's governments in Rio de Janeiro, and the idea of the Earth Summit was to address the growing environmental crises facing the planet. And three major environmental crises were identified in 1992. The climate change crisis, the crisis of destruction of biodiversity, and the crisis of land degradation and the spread of deserts, which was encroaching on humanity and on farmland as forests were cut down and as land became degraded. So in 1992, 3 treaties were signed: the Convention on Climate Change, the UNFCCC, the UN Convention on Biodiversity, and the UN Convention to Combat Desertification, 3 big environmental treaties. And this was the Earth Summit, and the treaties were adopted by everybody, and a lot of people thought, we've done it. Now humanity has risen to the occasion, and it will face these crises, and now we can look forward to a bright and sustainable future. Fast forward 20 years from the Earth Summit to 2012. the UN runs on an anniversary cycle, so there was an anniversary of the Earth Summit, and it was not ingeniously called Rio plus 20. So it was to get together and try to assess what had happened since the Earth Summit. And it was the saddest gathering I've ever been at for a UN gathering. Because when the governments came together in 2012, they were greeted by a report card. And this was also very vivid, it remains vivid in my mind. Nature magazine published a report card of the Earth Summit. And Nature magazine, the world's leading scientific journal, published 3 failed grades for UNFCCC on climate, for the CBD, the Convention on Biological Diversity, and on the UN Convention to Combat Desertification. 3 Fs were the report card. And the whole point was, 20 years ago, we had signed these treaties because we knew there was a crisis. What had happened in the next 20 years? Nothing. Not one of the treaties had made any real progress. The Climate Convention had had no real effect. There had been something you can remember from the distant memory called the Kyoto Protocol. The rich countries were supposed to move first. Typically, my own country, the United States, which I put #1 as most selfish country of the whole world, which is a prerogative when you are the imperial power, said, Kyoto Protocol, not for us. We're going to produce as much gas and oil and coal as we want, thank you. And they did. So the Kyoto Protocol was never even sent to the US Senate for ratification because President Clinton knew it wouldn't pass, and then the succeeding presidents didn't even care to try. So climate change, nothing except rising greenhouse gas emissions, more oil, gas, and coal. When it came to the Convention on Biological Diversity, in my country, it was even worse. The United States never even ratified the treaty. And the reason was quite extraordinary. Again, sorry to dwell on the United States, but the large landowners in the United States said, it's nobody's business if we destroy biodiversity on our land. That was essentially the text. Private property dominates everything. We have the right to do what we want on our land. And so the Congress, responding to these large landowners, didn't even ratify the convention, and until today, the United States isn't even a signatory of this convention. And then the third treaty, the UN Convention to Combat Desertification, which, by the way, like the COP30, which will take place in Brazil, or is taking place right now, will have its COP17 in Mongolia next summer. Nobody even heard of that treaty in most of the world. It's almost as if it doesn't exist. Because, again, the powerful countries don't have so much desert. They don't care. So they're not paying attention. So when this 20th anniversary came, dreadful. The governments got together and found out they had done nothing over the last 20 years, and every one of the crises was worse. And at that point, a very clever delegation of the country of Colombia, a woman put her hand up very nicely and said, we need goals for sustainable development. And the conference adopted the idea of sustainable development goals. Not what the goals would be, but that we did need global goals to help guide us to what the outcome document called very nicely, the future we want. It's a slogan I like very much. But the idea at the end of the Rio Plus 20 is we need to design the future. We need to build the future. It's not just going to happen. And if it just happens, it's not going to be the future we want. It's going to be a future of environmental disaster, of social inequality, of conflict, of forced migration. We need to build the future we want. I went back from that conference in Rio and spoke with Ban Ki-moon, who's wonderful Secretary General, and together we decided to launch a university network, first to help define what these goals should be, and then second to help implement them. And now I'm thrilled that we're welcoming this very, very important chapter today. What has happened, and where are we, and what are we going to do? Let me try to give you my thoughts about this. First, it took 3 years of intergovernmental negotiation to actually come up with what the goals should be. And the initial list, when they circulated among the governments, and each government added its idea about what our goals should be, numbered 300 proposals at the beginning. And over 3 years, they got it down to 17 proposals. And the date was getting late because they had to adopt something for the post-millennium development goal period. So they gavelled 17 goals in the summer of 2015. And those goals encapsulate the 4 dimensions of sustainable development. The 4 dimensions are that we should have prosperity, so that people should live decent lives materially, not suffering from hunger, not suffering from extreme poverty, having access to their core economic needs and rights, that this should be in a socially just context in which all parts of society and all parts of the world share in that prosperity, not just a few rich people or maybe the majority part of a society or the boys and men rather than the girls and women, but this should be a universal, socially just prosperity. And that it should be environmentally sound and sustainable. What we said then was that it should address the environmental crises. What we say now is that our economy should operate within the planetary boundaries. In other words, we should not overstep the Earth's physical systems that then derange the climate or poison the waters or create a disaster for biodiversity. And a 4th pillar of sustainable development is that this should be done peacefully and with global cooperation. So I take those to be the 4 meanings of sustainable development: economic prosperity, social justice, environmental sustainability, and peace and cooperation. And if you take the 17 goals, they map into those 4 areas. SDG number 1 is to end extreme poverty. Why should there be extreme poverty in a world where the average income is roughly $14,000 per person on the planet? Why should anybody be living in extreme duress when there's plenty to go around? And that's what the first SDGs say: no extreme poverty, no hunger, universal health coverage, all children getting a decent education. SDG 6, everybody has access to safe water and sanitation. SDG 7, everybody has access to modern energy services. SDG 8, everybody has the availability and access to decent work with proper protection for work, proper protection for workers, and so forth. SDG 9, everybody has access to digital services and other basic infrastructure. So the basics of prosperity. Then this should be socially just. For example, SDG 5, that there's no inequality between genders or SDG 10, that inequalities are kept under control. The Gini coefficient, which is the measure of inequality, doesn't get out of hand. You don't have somebody demanding, excuse me, $1 trillion paycheck, like someone in the United States today, demanding and getting from his shareholders a conditional $1 trillion paycheck. It's already a derangement of society that this is even conceivable and that it doesn't lead to a revolution, because it's completely obnoxious what happened with Elon Musk last week. Nobody has the right under any circumstances to demand $1 trillion paycheck in our world. And people that are brought up properly should know better, frankly, than to try. But even worse, he got what he wanted with his shareholders. And even worse than that, it was regarded as a little weird, but as a curiosity in the United States rather than as a shocking violation of any close call of social justice. And then the environmental goals are 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 11 is that our cities are not slum dwellings. They are safe to live. They're not suffering from PM 2.5 air pollutants and so on. SDG 12, that we're not poisoning the environment with toxic chemicals and single-use plastics and all of the other pollutants. SDG 13, that we do address the climate crisis by ending our dependency on fossil fuels, something completely practical, not even expensive, but not being done still till today. SDGs 14 and 15, that we protect the marine and the terrestrial ecosystems. And then this last pillar, which is perhaps the most important, actually, because it's even the most foundational, that there is peace and cooperation, because this doesn't get done in war. Sustainable development is about building, not about destroying. And so SDG 16 calls for peaceful and inclusive societies, and SDG 17 calls for global cooperation. So these are the 17 goals that governments came up with, and they adopted them unanimously in September 2015. Good job, by the way. Not a bad list. Not some arbitrary, bizarre, strange list. How did that get on there? There's nothing in the 17 goals that you scratch your head and say, how could they agree on that? They actually make sense, which is itself a good sign. But there are two problems. Problem number one is the UN is very good at setting goals and very bad at implementation. It's not designed for implementation. It's actually largely a diplomatic and normative institution. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining. I devote every day of my life to it. But it's not a self-enforcing institution where it sets goals and then you can be confident that the means to implement those goals are actually present. And so the goals were set, but not how they would be achieved. The second problem, again, I'm sorry to be a little bit parochial, but it is in two words. It's called United States. The world is not a fair place. It's not a just place. It is not a place of equality. It's not often a place of values and decency. And I'm sorry to say my own country is, in its self-declared role, the would-be, wannabe empire of the world. And empires do not behave according to justice, they behave according to power. So from the first moment of the Sustainable Development Goals, the United States government has been, for 9 years, useless, absolutely useless, and the 10th year in open war against the Sustainable Development Goals. This is a weird truth. For 9 years, I'd say it's useless because I heard Joe Biden say the phrase Sustainable Development Goals once, and never heard Donald Trump in his first term say the phrase even one time. And all governments are supposed to come up with plans. Your government has come up with Sustainable Development Goal plans, and all governments are supposed to present the plans to their peer governments in something called the High-Level Political Forum, which is a meeting of governments every summer in July. And the presentation is called the Voluntary National Review, because each government shows, here's what we're doing. Well, interestingly, we have 193 UN member states, and 190 of them have presented plans, and 3 of them have not. And those 3 are Myanmar, Haiti, and the United States of America. And in 2025, we have the return of King Donald I. And King Donald doesn't like sustainable development. He said at the podium of the UN now it's a month and a half ago because it was in September, that climate change is a hoax. I don't know what he knows or cares. I think it's a line for his oil lobby, which pays for his election campaigns. So I don't think he knows or cares what he actually believes. If anything, it's all domestic money politics. But it is the official policy of the United States. And even weirder than that, ladies and gentlemen, the United States has left UNESCO, just as you are giving us the new Director General of UNESCO. Thank you very much. A very esteemed minister of your country who will be an excellent leader of UNESCO. The United States is leaving UNESCO. Why is it leaving UNESCO? Well, according to the spokesman of the United States government, it's leaving UNESCO because UNESCO favors the Sustainable Development Goals. I never thought I'd see the day. But this is, unfortunately, our reality right now. We are not a world of shared prosperity. We are not a world of social justice. We are not achieving environmental sustainability, and we are certainly not a world of peace and cooperation. I put a huge responsibility of that on the most powerful country in the world. You would not have had a genocide next door in Gaza but for a US-Israel war on the Palestinians. This isn't even an Israeli war on the Palestinians, it is a US-Israeli war. Israel could not do this one day without the United States armaments, financing, intelligence, and diplomatic backing. This is a joint venture of Israel and the United States. It's despicable. It's horrendous. It is one of the worst war crimes of modern history. And this is part of what this empire means. So it's not an easy situation. I'm not here, though, to depress us, because I want to say the following, and this is where the universities are so essential. The governments were right when they set these goals in 2 senses. First, the goals express truly and in a quite special way the future we want. They are actually a quite remarkably coherent and inspiring vision of what a good society should be. A society should be a society of shared prosperity, social justice, environmental sustainability, and peace. And to have globally agreed goals, even if it's now only 192 of the 193 countries that have agreed to these goals, is a signal achievement for humanity. But the governments were also right in a second sense. These are not dreams. This is not utopia. This is not some wonderful vision, but of course we know that it's not possible, and so on. This is actually quite practicable. And it's practicable in two senses. First, it's practicable in that if you do an analysis, could Egypt run its economy on zero carbon energy, for example? The answer is, without question, yes, very efficiently, and thank you, with a lot of solar power that could be exported to power Europe, to power Africa, all very profitably. Especially, thank you, China, you've made solar modules so inexpensive, 8 US cents per watt, that this can be a powerhouse of clean energy for the world. So, goal by goal, if you do a rigorous analysis, the kind that we do at universities, the kind that we want our graduate students to write dissertations about, the kind that we want our students to do capstone projects helping their cities or helping to design national strategies or working with students in other countries to come up with very practical proposals. Goal by goal, you find that it is possible to achieve what we have said we want for the future. This is true of efficient agriculture that doesn't destroy the land and gives a proper diet for everybody. And there's a wonderful paper last month that just appeared called the Eat Lancet Report. EAT is the acronym of the reference group published by the Lancet Medical Journal. And it shows that region by region in the world, you can have environmentally sustainable agriculture and healthy diets for all. In other words, SDG 2. We know from IRENA, the International Renewable Energy Agency, or from the International Energy Agency in Paris, and from hundreds of other studies, that we can have an energy system at mid-century that is a zero carbon system. We know that we can have every child in school through upper secondary at a minimum, and with a large proportion of young people going on to tertiary education of some kind. And we know that with new online tools, the costs of providing this have gone down tremendously, and the capacity to have quality education is soaring if we're innovative. Because now, I believe in it, each student can have a tutor helping them along the way, an AI avatar that is helping them, watching how they're studying, coaxing them on a math problem, helping them on an assignment. And we should be innovating in a very bold and exciting way of new ways to teach, new ways to learn, new ways to engage the students. We were with a young team in Abu Dhabi just a couple of days ago, which is gamifying education. So students are learning by making video games as part of their formal training, but also, therefore, their engagement as well. And with a lot of excitement and a lot of learning about digital tools and so forth. So SDG 4, universal quality education for all, is absolutely within reach. And by the way, SDGs 16 and 17, peace and cooperation, it's about the cheapest thing we have on the planet. We could save $2.5 trillion a year if we weren't so twisted in our minds, putting that money into the military. If Europe didn't deviate from all its lessons of the 2 world wars and restart a military buildup as it's doing right now. If you happen to be next to a European sometime soon, ask them, what are you doing? Remilitarizing. And by the way, cutting your spending on social programs and on development programs, because that's exactly what Europe is doing right now. They're not over the cliff like Donald Trump yet, but they're close to it. So we have to rescue Europe from very, very bad ideas that are coming out of Brussels or coming out of Washington and are partly stoked by completely irrational fears of Russia or other kinds of fears that make absolutely no sense at all. So all of these goals are not only wonderful as a package and a program for the future, but are achievable. And this is where we come in. We're not achieving these goals right now because the last 10 years have not been good in how we have governed ourselves and how the international system has behaved, and because of the terrible shocks and accidents that we have also had. This has been a period of Trump. It has been a period of COVID, which, as a footnote, I believe was created in an American laboratory as part of a Defense Department program. After having studied this closely for many, many years, I can even tell you the lab and the scientists that made it, but no one's talking right now, and the evidence is being hushed up and blamed on China. The fact of the matter is the Defense Department in the United States wanted to manipulate these viruses and wanted to test them in China, where there was a specialized bat colony, and it probably escaped from Wuhan in the middle of this testing. And that is the best explanation. Well, the US owes you a lot, but they're not paying up. This is the basic fact. Then came the Ukraine war. That, again, completely avoidable. This was a war over the US attempt to expand NATO to Ukraine. If you look on a map, this is rather crazy. It would be tantamount to Russia trying to expand its military to Mexico. No, thank you. It would not sit well with the country to the north, just like the American NATO enlargement did not sit well with Russia. They said, stay away from our borders, and in the end came war because the United States would not listen and not behave with common sense and with the golden rule that we should not do to Russia what we don't want Russia to do to us, which is to put the military on our borders. So this is the second war. Then, of course, came the terrible genocide next door and the American complicity in it. This is just one of the great crimes of modern times. Even there, I do want to say to you, the whole world knows what has happened now. And of the 193 UN member states, 191 are aghast. And so the Arab world has on its side the rest of world opinion, the vast majority of humanity. People understand what happened. They have watched a genocide before their eyes. It is only the United States that protects Israel in this, not even the European countries, because in Europe, you get 1 million people out on the streets, and the politicians can't resist their own publics. And in the United States, I'm proud to say, it's not the American people pushing this, because 70% of the American people want the United States to recognize the state of Palestine as a UN member state. They want the two-state solution. They do not agree with what Israel is doing. So even on issues next door and in this neighborhood, it's not hopeless. The vast majority of humanity is on the right side of this issue. What I hope is that the bullying from the United States does not lead your government and other governments in this region to sign what is being pushed right now, King Donald governing Gaza, Jared Kushner making his resorts on the Riviera. This is mind-boggling in its crudeness and its vulgarity and its illegality. And while it's not easy for Egypt alone to say that, the whole world together should say no thank you to the United States. We want justice, and we want a political solution, and that means a state of Palestine. And this is the bottom line, and if the world can find its voice to say it, that too will happen. So the most important point about the Sustainable Development Goals is that we can achieve them. We are not going to achieve them by 2030. So I asked Galala University and AUC, be prepared for the long haul. Starting in a couple of years, I'm quite, I don't know, but I think it's quite likely that the UN will say, we'll keep with these goals, with or without the United States, by the way. This is important, but it's going to take us longer, and we're going to do better in our implementation. And these will remain the central goals for the world to mid-century. I see no other viable path. The only alternative will be that we have a collapse of multilateralism, which is not impossible, but I think is not really what the vast majority of the world wants. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have our work cut out for us. It's a big effort, but it is an achievable objective. Humanity is at what my guru, Edward Wilson, the great evolutionary biologist who taught at Harvard and was an inspiration for me, called humanity's bottleneck. We're in a narrow bottleneck right now. We are trying to find our way through a massive, unprecedented environmental crisis, a world of nearly 10 billion people, a very complicated, interconnected world, a nuclear-armed world, a world with extraordinarily powerful biotechnologies and artificial intelligence, and a world that is very capable of self-destruction. That's the bottleneck. We need to find our way through. If we do our work, if SDSN helps to show the path forward, helps to make the plans for the next quarter century, helps to show what Egypt can be and should be in the year 2050. And I think it is our work not to make a projection for 2026, but to make a projection for 2040 and 2050, and to show the future of this wonderful country. And by doing so, help to inspire that we follow the successful path. If we do our work, we will get to sustainable development. So thank you so much for launching SDSN Egypt. It's an incredible honor and a thrill for me. I love this country, as you know, and I'm inspired by it, and I'm absolutely grateful for you being part of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Sachs, for your powerful and thought-provoking insights. You have reminded us that achieving the SDGs is not only a global responsibility, but a shared mission that begins right here in our communities, our classrooms, and through our collaborations. As we celebrate the launch of the Egyptian chapter of the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, we look forward to the innovative research, partnerships, and impact that will emerge from this growing network, connecting Egypt's efforts with global solutions for a more sustainable future. On behalf of the John D. Gerhardt Center, the Onsi Sawira School of Business, the Galala University, and the whole AUC community, thank you all for being part of this inspiring moment. We hope today's sessions leaves you motivated to continue advancing our shared vision, which is a world that is more sustainable, equitable, and united in purpose. Thank you once again, and we wish you a wonderful evening.